Ilse Wolf, it's been a while since last time you were on the podcast, and you are a Team Diego friend. We've been collaborating on the New Zealand Real Estate Conference. You are a personal friend, but most importantly, you're a true professional. You help a lot of people achieving their dreams, and you got a lot of wealth of knowledge around property investment and everything that comes with investing in property. So I'm very excited to talk to you because it's you know what to do, you know what's happening, and you know how to help people. Would that be a fair assessment?
That's very kind. Yeah, I'd like to think so. So yeah, thank you. Yes, thanks for having me back. It's really lovely to catch up, and so much has changed since we were last here. So it's good to talk about what's working in the market now, what investors and buyers want, and I'm here to help people make the right decision to get the most out of their next property.
And you know, if you're an investor that you've got a number of properties, you're always on the hunt for something else, another opportunity. But this video might be as well for the person that it's been thinking about property investment, has seen a few videos. You know, there is definitely people that promote it actively online, and it's the dream of mum and dads in New Zealand to always been to own an investment property, right? And so it's something that it's in the New Zealand culture is really, really strong. So somebody that might have never, purchased the property before, but is considering doing that, the biggest question is, I would assume would be, how do I start and what do I buy?
Yeah.
What is an investment? Because the word investment is something that is going to obviously work out for the best, right? So how do you start?
Yeah. And how do you do it well, right? I think that's the caution, the stage when someone's looking to buy. There's so much information, so many opinions, and so how do you choose what's right for you, right? When you talk to the bank or your broker, they'll talk about what's your risk profile. So I would say, I'm wholeheartedly in the buy second-hand or existing builds to add value to. So I tend to work with other like-minded investors. So you might be watching or listening to this thinking, okay, well, if I want something completely hands-off, something brand new, has all the builder warranties, don't have to touch it, I'll let it sit there, and over a long period of time, it'll increase in value at some rate. That's not what we're talking about right now. What we'll talk about is how you can really improve cash flow through adding value. So renovations, might be a light cosmetic renovation, right up to adding bedrooms, minor dwellings, developing a site that has land. My job with my clients is to help them get the strongest cash flow increases by buying properties that I can guide them through a methodology, a strategy to improve their servicing. So servicing is a fancy bank word for income, and the way we've got such high cost of living, no one wants to waste a dollar. If you're looking to get the best rental performance and cash flow out of it, this truly is the method that I back, and I've built my whole portfolio and now help other clients do that too. If you have a really big audacious goal to have a larger portfolio or like multiple properties, you need to do yourself the best duty of doing the research and find the ones that are going to help propel you into the next. So genuinely through adding value, you can increase the value of the property and improve the rent that helps you and your income look good to the bank.
And you'll think it's common sense, right? Adding some value to the property, make it worth more money. Do you see people overshooting on that? And what I mean by that, people overcapitalizing, for lack of a better word. So, you've done too much. Now the property is not worth. It's you know what I mean,
yeah,
right?
Totally. And I've done that myself. The first time, I've been investing for nearly 20 years, and the first time when I went full time and on the tools, literally. Went to this project in Mangere in South Auckland. I couldn't even pay for enough help, so I pulled my brother in, sweat equity we call it, and we were sanding and doing the weatherboards, all of the outside, all of the inside. The cool thing there was we went every day 7 till 7 alongside our builder who kindly taught us the ropes. That took us 11 weeks over an entire summer. We did not have it was fun, but we didn't go out socialise fun to learn that. That was the whole investment at that point. But even then, right, I didn't know what I didn't know. I put double glazing in Mangere, and this is 2015. And I thought, I'll do this, it'll be better than the other properties. And so with the valuer will come and I'll get the highest value that's ever been seen, in Mangere. And it was so not the case. The valuer, he turned up and kind of looked at this overdone property, and he giggled. And I was like, oh shoot, that can't be good. And he said, why have you put double glazing in? I said, so that it's better than the houses that have old, timber joinery or single glazing. And he said, that makes no sense here. This is the only house in like whatever radius that has double glazing. And I got no marks for that. I got no extra value. All I had done was spend far too much, like $20,000 on this house that was unnecessary. So that was a huge lesson. You have to have some of those fails or learn some of those hard lessons early on, always better early on, so that you can work out the right way. Like when you renovate, make it appropriate to that location, obviously, and also to who the most likely person is who's going to move into it. So if you flip properties, who's the buyer? What do they expect in this location when they buy a property? And is it for a home or is it a rental property? Who's that tenant and what would they expect versus not expect? Yeah.
And before we talk about location, because I think it's important when you're looking for an investment, picking the right location. I suppose it comes down to having the right type of advice, right? Because if I had to start the journey as a property investor, I would want to speak to people that are going to be helping me either renting the property or reselling the property. So we talked about in the past, I remember talking about having a Tesla charging cable, remember? There's places that you probably would 100% not consider it, but you would not know unless you're speaking to the potential agent and whatnot. So it's about getting the right type of advice, right? Because if you can get good advice, then you can make good decision and your investment is going to be a better investment. Fair to say?
Absolutely. And so, whether you're in New Zealand and buying in New Zealand or living abroad, a Kiwi abroad looking to buy here, you're so far removed, unless you're full-time in the industry, or really in your active buying phase, getting right under the hood of all the details and talking to every, agents, your property managers, draftspeople, council, etc. You do need to do a lot of research, because if you're not living and breathing the market every day, it's quite surprising how detached you can be. And so actually, even to the same extent of you might be in New Zealand but buying in a different place. So if you are effectively a remote buyer, you need to take the expertise of the team on the ground where the property is, 100%. I've had occasions where a potential deal has come to me to put in front of a client, and I actually nearly discounted it because it wasn't in a suburb that we typically would work. And I sort of thought, this is actually not going to be as strong as these clients want in terms of capital growth and returns. But I thought, hang on, before I write it off, I'll call a couple of our property managers, and thinking, just sense check it before I do this. But I'm so glad I made that call. They just said, no, we will take that. We will have that tenanted so quickly. And that really stopped me in my tracks, because at the moment, the rental market's quite slow. So rents are down from a year ago, and rather than have, as landlords, we've not had vacancy issues. For as long as I've been investing, this is the first time. It could take 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So you have to present the property really, really well and for that right tenant. But in that example, the property manager said, it was a block of 10 units actually. They said, we'll take it, we'll have it rented straight away. And there was no vacancy. So what that told me was, I thought I knew, but I didn't. And also there was a real opportunity actually in that place, because the tenancies moved so quickly. So there was a need for that particular location and that type of one-bedroom rental, that the market was not meeting demand. So it was the best. It's a 15% gross yield deal, which is unreal.
I always say it's a part-time job looking to buy or looking to sell or looking to, you need to have a lot of knowledge, and that's why you just work with a professional and ask the question you need to have an answer for. You don't have to spend half a day figuring it out yourself, right? Talking about location, that's probably one of the biggest questions. People say, where do I invest? We're in Auckland here, but I've thought about it a couple of times. Maybe I should sell my rental in Auckland and buy one in Christchurch where the yield is better and I don't have to top it up, because I don't care about the property either way, right? So talking about location, Auckland, New Zealand, what do you see that works?
At the moment, a lot of the regional centres and cities. So Auckland is affordable compared to for us to buy to renovate. We can buy properties for a better price than 2 years ago, and then in terms of within Auckland, West Auckland's fantastic for the potential with the land development. Wouldn't be developing that right now. There's plenty of stock out there, but to have that potential by buying an existing build with great intensification options on the district plan. We've done so many successful deals out here, and that's always been part of my clients' criteria. They may not be a developer or want to, but they know they could sell for that premium, so that's their exit. And also central to South Auckland, some really great affordability for home and incomes, blocks of units, which is where some of my clients want to focus. But as a starting point within Auckland, I think out west is really affordable, lots of opportunity to add value, and again that land potential. Around the country, Dunedin, Southland, and Hawke's Bay, all doing really, really, really well.
Why do you say Dunedin? Maybe because of the students? Or
yeah. So the student market in Dunedin kind of has its own microcosm. It just operates in its own way.
Okay.
And what's really great about it is that we're a typical long-term tenancy, like one family moving into one house, with long-term rental being the most likely tenant if you're an investor. Rents have dropped all around the country, to varying degrees, but most places have been quite hard hit. So that happened really rapidly. For example, if we had a property on due diligence in February, it would have been appraised, 3 to 4 bedroom conversion, which is our most common sort of strategy, would have been appraised at $750 to $780 per week rent. By the time we had a couple of weeks due diligence, 3-4 weeks to settle, then renovate, so maybe 3 to 4 months out, so March to July, August, the actual rent to either list for but eventually get that tenant would be $670 to $695. So a huge drop when you're running those figures. However, in places like Dunedin, maybe Palmerston North to some extent with the student market, you still have a flat share, so one tenancy agreement, but it's a uni flat, right? Everyone's names goes on the one agreement. That's effectively like a room by room sort of scenario. Okay. The market in Dunedin charges a rate per room. So it doesn't care about whether the long-term rental market is high or soft. It's $200 to $220 per bedroom. So if we have a 3-bedroom house, we convert to a 4, that can jump from probably, it's run down, $550 a week, we can get it up to nearly $900 a week. Okay. And it just behaves of its own accord. Okay. Yeah.
Now, as an agent, disclosure is a big thing, right? Everyone, it's ChatGPT and all of those. When you put it in, what the question I should ask as a buyer, one of the questions is always ask the agent if there is anything that needs to be disclosed. And as an agent, when we sign a listing, we always have to ask: has there been any addition, room changing and all of that? So how does that work from a point of view of getting the house and doing it in the best way possible? How does that work?
Yeah, and like compliance and
Correct.
things like that. Yeah. Consents are such a big deal. You have to do everything correctly, right? Because even if you own the property, at the point you're trying to sell, any issues that you're leaving with the property, think about how difficult it will be to offload that, right? So you always want to follow the building code and in any consent process.
Correct.
So with the strategies that we typically focus on, we are looking for certain types of properties where we've had a track record in the past of knowing we can turn a certain layout or configuration from a 2 to a 3, 3 to 4, maybe 5 bedroom. So again, depends what's in demand, but really important, we always would follow a building consent process. So adding in a second toilet, in many places, right? If you go from a 3 to a 4 bedroom, you need, fundamental second toilet, if not bathroom. So we would always follow the building consent process for that, and account for that in our budgets. But when it comes to certain things that are non-structural, so when you're not impacting or compromising rather the integrity of the building itself, you don't need to have consents for everything you do. So there is a document that is called Building Consent Exemptions. It's really detailed. Definitely go have a look. So anything you plan to change, go see whether it swings to red, you need a consent or not. When we're adding bedrooms, when we're filling in certain spaces to create them, we don't need a consent.
Okay.
The main point though is you've got to think about the space you're converting. Is it already intended for a human to be in and sleep in effectively, or not? So often we buy these properties and you can see a garage door's been pulled off and there's a ranch slider, right? Like you'll see this all the time. If that room is being sold or rented and called a bedroom, that is illegal. So that is at best a rumpus or an activity room, right? You can't, so the idea behind that is say you have a garage, it's built to house a car, right? So even the trusses, the gaps between the trusses for the roof, to hold the roof up for a car are less rigorous than if you have a human sleeping under it, right? So the way that roof is over the garage is different from the roof over your bed in the house. You can't just decide, I'm going to replace a car with beds and people, because that is illegal. You're putting your tenants at risk. So if you want to convert what is called a non-habitable space into a habitable space, that absolutely requires a very specific consent, as one example.
And here's again why you're speaking to a professional,
Yeah.
right?
And it's not just sort of about doing things legally, correctly. You're responsible for the tenant's safety, right? You don't want that on your shoulders if anything happens.
And it's about doing the right thing as well.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to buy an investment that turned out to be there was a little bit of a lemon because somebody wasn't fully honest. So integrity it's upfront. We haven't talked about the actual property itself. Now, if you're an investor, you're looking to buy a home, what should you buy? What type of property that you know that once you're going to be selling in a few years, you're going to have zero problem. I call them the blue chip properties.
Blue chip,
the white picket fence, that ticking most boxes.
And
if you typically speaking, what there is regardless of the bedroom, is having some privacy on a good street with some good neighbors. The school zoning is important but not crucial. So plenty of property with multiple bidders and in a zone that there was no great school, but nevertheless. People just want a good family home. They just want a good home that is going to suit their needs, right? And privacy is important, parking is crucial, having a bit of flat land, a little bit of open indoor floor, open plan living. You don't have all of them, but if you can have a lot of those components, then it's a good property because it's going to appeal to the masses, right? And if it appeals to most than not, it means there's a property that you shouldn't have too much problem selling it down the line.
Exactly.
Would you agree?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the key point is to differentiate as well. So, we're focusing on existing builds to renovate, right? So however you do that, I think we're all guilty of, let's go white walls, charcoal grey carpet, basic curtains and a white subway tile splashback or what have you. So if you're wanting broad appeal to the rental market, that's very good because it's a blank canvas that your tenants can then make their own, right? They can furnish it and make it however they want. But if you're looking to sell, to differentiate in a way where no one can walk in and then directly think, this property looks like another, because if it's a commodity, it has less value, right? You want yours to stand out, be super different, so that has value. If someone walks in and thinks, I couldn't have done that myself, I appreciate the design and the level of finish and the quality, I will pay more for this one than next door. So one opportunity that is great for a buyer that might might be focused on a particular suburb or street, go have a look at the sales of the best in class. If it's a 4-bedroom house, what are the 4-bedroom sales on that street? Which ones were like superior, looked really mint, and what did they sell for? Then go find the one that's run down. It's kind of that adage, like best street, worst house, right? But go find the one that is lesser, you can pay less, and then for more of a cost-effective spend, you can actually build it up yourself. And the benefit from that is, A, if it's a rental, you'll get better rent, and B, rather than pay full price for the one that was all spick and span, pay less for the inferior one that needs some love, and then do the work, and you'll make equity off the top of it. You have to do it correctly, but when you do that, you're making money from that process. Yeah, it's great.
True investor talking. Hey, look, what is the trap that, last question on this, what is the trap that a lot of first-time investors fall in?
Not know their numbers. So, and I've done this, I'm definitely guilty of this myself from the early days. So you look at a price, you make an offer, you lock in that debt level effectively. If it's your own home, make sure you know what that cash outflow is per month or week, right, to the bank, and whether it's interest or principal and interest, right? Those are two very different numbers. If it's a rental property, and if what you want to make sure is that you're comfortably taking on that debt, so that's where your financial advisor can steer you. But in practice, you need to know X amount rent coming in, X amount of expenses and interest going out. What are you left over with at the end of every week that goes in your pocket? Or worst case is if the expenses outweigh the rent and the income and you're topping up to the bank, that's a cash hole, right? If that then depends on the income that you make, you need to know you can afford that. You can get in deep water very quickly if the net cash is an outflow, right? So and there's no point in being an ostrich with your head in the sand. It doesn't help you to not know, like do your numbers and then make a really educated decision on whether you can afford the property or not.
Does it get easier getting a second investor? I know the answer to that, but do you typically see people getting more confident in the second and third and fourth invest?
Definitely, yeah. The education ramps up massively from the first acquisition, where it's analyses, due diligence, renovation, execution, tenancy. Going through that process the first time massively amplifies. And when I see my clients go on to their second project, most of my clients want to buy 2 in 1 year. By the time they decide they're doing it, they're all in. The second one, markedly different. Even the point at which they involve me, it's more, hey, what do you think? We've done this analysis, da da da. Versus the first time is hand-holding questions all the way through. So yeah, when you increase your knowledge, it's a toolkit that you carry forward into every project. And you do better every time. It's kind of like a sport. You want to do a PB, you want to beat your personal best, so you do find it becomes like this addiction in every property. You want it to exceed the last, which is a good goal to have.
That's a good goal to have. Hey, look, this was a good chat. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.